Hi everyone, welcome to the Agile Product Management for machine learning session. So I'm Marc, and Susanne together with me will introduce the Agile Product Management ID services, and we'll go through examples how to implement that in machine teams. So here's a bit introduction of myself. Right? So I've been working IT for the last 20 years, has been involved in the project implementations, consultings, IT operations, and recently more towards the Agile, DevOps, internal or in IT services. So I've been involved in developments in machine learning, and I'm part of SAP technology ambassadors. Right, thanks mostly for the invitation here, and happy to share. Right, so what are we doing and how do we define the Agile product management? Susanne, you want to provide some introductions?
Yes, of course. Thanks, Marc, for the introduction first. Hi, everyone. I'm Susanne. After my PhD in mathematics, I joined SAP 2 years ago. And after an early talent program in my first year, I joined IT business services as a product owner for machine learning solutions. And within our machine learning team in Singapore, we mainly deal with two different products, both based on natural language processing. For one of our products, we will have a closer look later on in this presentation.
Very nice. Now let's go to the agenda, right? So basically, what do we plan? Two parts, right? So practically. So first part, we would talk about Agile Product Management, right? So basically, what do we mean by Agile Product Management, and how do we apply Agile Product Management in IT services? How do we set recommended standard for the team here? And the second part, Susan will really dive in, right? So talk about how the machine teams using the Agile Product Management concept. What are some challenges they are having, and how do they address that with Agile Product Management? And the last part, if any questions, please feel free to ask. And we have been happy to share our experiences. Okay, Agile Product Management, right? So before we go to the more detail for Agile Product Management, I just want to share a key message coming from Marc who's head of IT business services, and also the sponsor for Agile and DevOps adoptions in IT services. So basically for us, when you look at implementation of Agile implementation product management, so we look at we call a construction manual. You can also call a kind of standard for the IT services teams. The reason is because we have a wider team, right? So for IT services, we have 400 people around the globe, and we find it's also important to we synchronize our Agile delivery approach, right? So that's also an important part for our strategy, because when we talk about user-centric, when we talk about building future applications, the Agile delivery and product management are the two important pillars for us to deliver. So, so our approach is set at minimal standard, so including for the product management, and that's a foundation for our Agile building project, right? So change the practices, adopting the good practices, or even later influencing the culture. How do we develop that? So this is what do we want to do, and how do we do that, right? So we have been doing Agile for a couple of years times, and the last year really come out is based on the 5 pillars. And so when we define our Agile strategy houses, we define the principles, values as a foundation, right? But if you look at the detailed areas, we have 5 pillars, right? We have organization, which is more about the roles, right? So including the Agile roles like Scrum Masters, but also including product management, product owner role as well, right? And to talk about governance, it's about the process, right? So what kind of process we will adapt, what are the meeting structures, what are artifacts, right? So talk about user stories, talk about product visions. And the culture is the important pieces, right? So what do we realize is, I mean, without the right cultures, it's right you make sustained changes, right? Transformation. So culture is a very big piece for us to adopt the mindset, change the mindset, and move to the future. Value stream and the procedures. This is very important for us to do a value delivery. Right? So basically, we align the IT delivery into value streams. Right? So what are the operational value streams we delivered? What are the team, system, data supporting on that? Right? So that's very big pieces. And the other part goes more details. What's the output? What's the procedures? How the process supporting value stream delivery? So that's the big part for the value stream and procedures. Last part, also very important, is the technology because when we move into the future development, and so we want to adopting the good practice in the software engineering, right? Talk about test automation, but we also want to adapt the practices of, for example, XP. Talk about the practices of good good for the technology team working together, right? So pair programming extra. So technology piece really reach out to that. What are tools available? How do we apply that? What kind of resources are available, right? So, and ultimately, when we have all of this we are supporting the strategy, right? So IT service being want to be more user-centric, deliver customer-centric applications. So that's our strategy and supporting by 5 P's, what I just shared. And the IT product management, right? So this is really when we talk about moving the concept from project and product. You can see a lot coming from the value stream, coming from the procedures. So why we talk about product, right? So why we move away from the project indeed here. So we want to ensure there's a clear support strategy, there's a definition, there's roadmaps, there's of course necessary documentation, right? Not overdone, responsibility and the stakeholders, right? So this is really take a fresh look at how we do things, why do we do certain things, right? So if you look at the previous project mindset, right? So you have a fixed timelines, fixed scopes. It didn't really work in the current environment with the transformation with digital, with the fast-paced development cycles, with the increased expectation from the users, right? So what we would really like is take a long-term view and have a really good, clear visions for the product developments, have a clear definition what we want to develop, have a roadmap kind of guide us through the developments, but also have a clear responsibility who is involved here, how do we meet stakeholders' expectation, right? So currently we have a switch to the product team mode, right? So we have roughly 150 teams into my product development, right? So developing based on the value streams. So for us, being IT services, what is a product, right? So we can call a software application as a product, right? A mobile app as a product. But for us, we extend, right? Because we also have support services, right? So for example, we have sharing services. So our services could be a product for us as well. And we also have a central support, so process organization, right? So the central office team. So process can be a product for us. So for us, it's mainly surrounding with values, right? So as long as we're generating customer values, right? So that's we call a product. What we will define the value we generate, the customer we serve, and team involved here, right? So they can provide services to customer. And how does product are tailored, right? So product defined, tailored by the business IT management. So work with close collaboration with them, and I mean with both sides. And we work as agile team, right? So you can look at roughly 6 to 10 people in the stable teams here, and a product can be either including both develop and operation, right? So we want to have end-to-end responsibility covered, right, for the particular product. And that's a little bit more detail, right? Talk about the product definition, right? So what are the attributes, right? So we call IT product. So that serve as a guardrails when we talk about product defining product. So one is the business capability aligned, right? So product defined, resource funded based on the business capability. Right? Why do we do that? Because if you look at end-to-end delivery, you look at business values, instead of aligned to the specific technologies, which is could be part of business value, but you will be lacking of the whole capability to deliver it, right? So we look at it from the other angle, right? So instead of from technology, we look at for us to deliver business capability, what are the key team skill sets required, right? So in a form of product. And the management is talk about managing as a product. It's a kind of dedicated product owners, managers, right? So, but it's also talk about funding as well, right? So spending money allocated, right? So the accountability as well, right? So moving away from more kind of central allocated fundings more to a product side fund. And the third part is sustain, right? So it's not really look at a fixed time, right? So when we have a product, I think especially whether in IT or whether in standard developments, realistically you look at it medium term to long term, right? So the product need to develop, the product need to be supported, the product need to be enhanced. So when you look at how do we sustain the development, right? So over the long term. And the third part is also important for us, right? The cross-cutting talent community, right? Because if you look at what do we have in SAP, right? So look at the technology stack we already have, we keep on developing, or even the new technology stack we acquire. So it's keep on developing. So what do we would like to have here in terms of product management, in terms of agile, in terms of development skills? Role and interest is based on community-enabled career development, right? Collaboration, share of interests. So it's really a collaboration and putting the different skills that required. And last part, but not least, is the cross-cutting resource and governance. Right? So we also have shared services, supporting teams. So mapping the specific technology asset, right? So the single product, sometimes difficult. So we have to admit that, right? So especially talk about huge system, right? The resources can be shared with cross-product, provide on-demand support and sustain the technology foundations. Similarly, all the products rely on the same architecture and the enforce secure resources, right? So this is really talk about in a big organization support with bigger systems. Sometimes could be a little bit old, right? So talk about 10 years old systems. So how do we balance out, right? So one way we want to have self-organized, empowered teams to deliver across end-to-end features. But sometimes it's also because the technology here. So I have to say there's a cross-cutting resources provide shared services, especially talk about security, operations, or even some technology stack. So now talk about product management procedure, right? The backlog management. So when we talk about a huge IT organization, right, 2,400 people, supporting even huge company, right? So in IT, SAP itself, we have more than 100,000 resources around the globe. What we would like to do is we have clear defined iceberg model for the product. So this is close aligned with the Agile principle, right? So we have a highly refined user storage, right? So that's detailed variable, acceptance criteria, clear defined, estimate, right? So this small enough fit into one sprint. So this is very important for the Agile delivery, right? So you can think about this the job needs to be done in the product management side, both product owners, but to enable Agile team to deliver small delivery, frequent delivery, and in a fast, critical manner. Right? But the other part we captured here, based on the prioritizations, there's a group of discounts, right? There's a certain level of some detail, acceptance criteria, split into small stories for the discussion. So this is the user stories will be likely pulling the near future sprints, right? So we know the priority is getting higher. We know sometime we deliver. So that's why one already started the discussion, have some overview of the criteria and already do some split, right? But the last part is the things we have a little to non-details, basically kind of 1 to 9 identify what's the main objectives, what's the key stakeholders. The reason we want to do that is because we know the priority always changes, right? So, and there's a very likely cases, there's some backlogs items will never surface to the top, right? So maybe after 3 months, 6 months, could be outdated because business environment changes. So we don't want to spend too much time on that at the time being, knowing the uncertainty, right? So that's why we keep track there, right? So I think it's important for business stakeholders knows there's a place for that in case they will like to develop this further. Also, the other things we don't want to spend too much effort on that, right? Knowing that things could be changing. So that's kind of balance of the requirements and how much effort we want to do, right? So the key guidelines, you have at least 2 sprint watch, right? Reading backlogs at all times. So you can really pull in and you can meet the immediate demand from the HR team. In the product management, one of the key challenges is how do we prioritize the backlog, right? Because in some cases, we have more than one business stakeholder, right? So there be different interesting group, different business come to you for requirement for the same product. But how do we prioritize, right? So one of the things could be, say, I align with the product vision, right? So I align with the overall value delivery. But there are also some detailed techniques can use, right? So what I'm showing here is the Moscow, right? Moscow, you can see is more general approach around must have, should have, could have, won't have, right? So this is really moved from a traditional project approach, right? So you can have everything high priority, right? Everything top priority. So this is really make the product management team for owner think about that. What are the must-have, right? For us to deliver immediate value to the customers, what are the must-have in the immediate term, right? So what are the foundation requirements, minimum usable set, right? So without them, and what's the delay, right? What's the releases will be used, guaranteed delivery. But you break down what's the must-have, what's should have, what's could have, what will not have, right? So one of the key concepts for product ownership is really for those things clearly knowing at the beginning is not provide values. So product owner, product management team as kind of like the guardian, as I said, right? Already stop at the beginning, right? So those will not have already element from backlogs. What a must have put in the top, what should have and could have can be part of backlogs, kind of supporting the future developments. So here we also talk about a little bit detail, right? So there's a use of particular way for any type of product because this is, I think is easily understand, right? From business side, from product management, from agile team, right? So this is a common concept all people can accept, and is replace the simple sequential 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So this is I think it's more close actually to human language. People can understand what that mean. Must have rather than what this mean. Another reason I might want to use Moscow is allow a team to determine, right, how much effort goes to each category. So this is also important here. What's the things you want to predefine, right? So how much things I want to allocate different categories. So this is can be early discussion you have with business stakeholders based on your product nature, right? So how much things can go here, and that would be save a lot of discussion in the future. That's real. Talking about product management, right? So talk about working with agile team. So user story is very important techniques here, right? So then how do you split the user story, right? Especially how do you go from the big epics, go to capability, go to features, go to user stories. So here we provided the guidance here. So why do we do that, right? So Smaller items are you generally less complex. I guess there's less variable between small items. It'll be easy to understand, estimate. This is very important for consistent delivery, right? So predict delivery for agile teams. Short cycles, large work item, hide bottlenecks, dependency risk here, right? So when do you do that, right? So you look at the agile, especially Scrum approaches, regular backlog refinement meetings. So I think for the product management, for the product owners, even the work might be even starting before that, right? Getting this prepared, prioritized, and bring the product backlog refinement meetings. Or in the sprint planning, that's another challenge, right? So for the product owner to for small items, right? So if he discovers too big, I'll discuss with the teams, you can still break down, right? So, and there's something unseen item, right? Still offered in the sprint planning or even during sprint plannings. And how do we do that, right? So there's an invest principle, right? So basically talk about how do we consider a good story, right? So when it's small enough, when it's tangible to implement that. During the plannings, you can also apply the hamburger approach, right? So I will go to a little bit detail here. So when we talk about hamburger approach, right, thinking about what I get in McDonald's, right? So you have basically everything, but in the smaller bite, right? So the problem statement is the backlog is too big to split and estimate. The business user did not accept any breakdown proposed by the delivery teams, right? So that means we don't have a smaller user authority to deliver, right? So the team is inexperienced. It could be the technology complexities. It could be a new technologies. So we say one of the solutions is hamburger approach, right? So and how this hamburger approach works is first the team will be jointly coming decide, right? So like with brainstorming basis, identify the task, what are tasks required from our current knowledge to deliver on that, right? So then talk about what are options for the tasks, right? So you try to go as wide as possible, right? So try to, based on current knowledge, to see what are detailed tasks you require. Then you come by result, right? So you form hamburger shape, right? So what are things want to delivered? What are things you need done to be delivered at? And then you have a more kind of like a convergent process, right? Train the hamburger, really look at the hamburger, what are things definitely kind of we need to do, we already know right now need to required to do, or what are things might be not required, what are things will not required after the second thought. And the fifth step is the important step, right? We call take a first bite. Basically, look at all tasks, what we already have here. Now you have a hamburger. So decide how deep we want to take the first bite, right? So discuss what's the minimum acceptance levels, quality for the each steps. So yeah, so that we provide some example here, right? So talk about values, talk about volumes, right? So in the part of transactions, what are the really high priorities items that can deliver you a good customer value to validate your backlogs, or can provide a clear knowledge or learnings on the technology challenge you are facing, right? So, and on the other hand, a fast real-time update, right? So, so this is really talk about different options, and then you have to think about here. Continue from the early phases. That's all the options we are having, all the tasks we are doing here. But what are the minimum steps? What are, if you want to spend the next sprint on this topic, what are the minimum things we can do? We already have some valuable learnings. We already have can have more clarity at the end of next sprints to see how we can deliver overall hamburger, or even say we evaluate hamburger. So whether it makes sense going forward. And if this is successful, then you do a second bite. So this is more an incremental approach, right? So rather than say I take the whole burger together, right? So close to waterfall approaches. But I really have experimental approaches. I take first bite, see how things work, and second bite. Gradually building customer values over the times. Yeah. Okay, so this is all I have here. So if there's no more question, I'll pass to Susanne, so we'll cover more details, deep diving into machine learning topics.
Thank you, Marc, for the theoretical introduction. And now along one of our products, we'll also have a look at how our machine learning team is actually practicing Scrum and the Agile method. Can you go to that? Thank you. Okay, so first let me introduce our team. On the right-hand side, you can see all our team members. All of us are based in Singapore. So we are co-located and running full Scrum. But we do have dependencies on 2 other teams in India, which are also running Scrum. So basically the three teams of us are practicing Scrum of Scrum as well. Our team is responsible for 2 natural language products. One of them is DCD AI, which is a review tool for contracts with our customers, where we try to extract data and also classify specific clauses. And the other product we are having is the NLP for sales, which is the back end for a chatbot for sales colleagues. Our team is active in Agile practicing and sharing. This is, for instance, one of the sessions here, but we are also aligning with other teams within IT and also other board areas within SAP to share our experience. And we are also sharing and exchanging experience with machine learning in a machine learning community in Singapore. So there's also cross collaboration and experience exchange of talents and knowledge in machine learning. Okay. How does natural language processing work? So basically it's to teach the computer how to understand human language. And you could do this by rules. So whenever you have, for instance, some specific keywords, then the next word you want to extract or something. However, rules are quite effortful and you will never be able to capture every different variety in the human language. So machine learning can capture similar sentences. So what you want to do is to understand that if you get one sentence like show me my opportunities with BMW, then you want to understand that show me all my deals with our customer BMW has basically the same meaning. So what you have to teach the machine is some similarity, some closeness of meaning of words and sentences. Both methods, machine learning and rule-based, basically need a big database of samples, but rule-based can only cover what it has learned, but machine learning can cover everything in between as well, because it can, as I said, it can understand similarities. How does it do that? Here I have an example of a word embedding. On the right-hand side, we have a vector space with different words in it. So you map words to numeric values in a vector space. On the right-hand side, it's 3-dimensional. We have the dimension manliness, femininity, and regalness. So we can see that the king has a high contribution in manliness, 0 contribution in femininity, and he's quite regal. A queen doesn't have any contribution in manliness, but also regalness. And therefore, the 2 vectors, queen and king, are similar, but the dimension of the gender is different. So you can see in this context, queen and king are close to each other, prince is a little further away, and the potted plant, which is neither male nor female nor royal, a potted plant here is in the origin and has a further distance to king and queen. And that's how machine can make sense out of words. And you can do more abstract things to a whole sentence and thereby understand the meaning of the sentence and similarity of sentences. And basically we're using this and other techniques in our product DCD AI. The objective here is to detect clauses, for instance, analysis clause, renewal clause, or if customer wants to have EU access. and then see if these clauses are in their standard form, are excluded, or are even amended. This is one task. The other task is to extract specific data points, meaning, for instance, if there is a renewal pricing cap, what is the percentage value of that? Or, for instance, we could also extract the customer name or service level agreement percentages, dates, and so on and so forth. So you can see on the left-hand side down, this is a contract, a sample contract we can have with our customer. And on the right-hand side, you see there's an automatic extraction starting with non-standard warranties, and our prediction is no, non-standard warranties are not in. And all of the clauses and all of the extractions come with a confidence value, and if the confidence is high enough, it will be automatically accepted, and if the confidence is low, then it comes to this review tool, and your team is manually reviewing this and then accepting the suggestions. For this whole product, or in general also, we have a machine learning pipeline. First of all, we have to understand the problem. Then we have to get the data. So data is everything in our application. Having the data but is not enough. So we have to prepare the data, we have to clean the data, and we have to split it into 3 different sets: in the training set, in the testing set, and the validation set. And then on the training set, the model is trained and later on tested and validated. And this testing and validation comes along for us also with our business stakeholders, because they give us the thresholds and the quality measurements until which we should improve our models. Of course, this is not always possible. So there comes an alignment and a mindset change for the business that machine learning is not 100% science, 100% reliable application, but you always have some probabilities. And with this probability, then if it's good enough, you're fine. If not, you can try to improve it and you go through a cycle. Then eventually, if the model is good enough or business accepts, then we deploy it and we monitor the performance of the models. So eventually, especially with this capability that business is basically reviewing the clauses and extractions which are not good enough, by this manual review, we also collect more data and then can retrain and improve. And thereby we have an iterative process to iteratively improve our machine learning models. However, we have a high data dependency. So meaning if we get a complete new set of data, then we would have to start it all over again or improve the model. And therefore, we have to have a close alignment with our business. And how do we evaluate? We have basically a circle, as already said, it's an iterative process. So we have to align first of all on the data structure. We have to have, or we are having even, an open and collaborative thinking with our business. And all of us are working on a continuous improvements towards a smart product. So it's, as Marc mentioned, it's an end-to-end thinking. We want to have a product and not just only something in between, and nobody is responsible for the in and outs. But with business, we try to understand the whole process from the beginning, from the data, where does it come from, and what is the overall purpose of business, what do they want to achieve, and how do we feed this back into our end system. So the key value here for us is that we understand business, and business is understanding what we are doing and what we can deliver. And this works basically in a circle. So in the beginning, we come up with the first model, which is our responsibility, and we train and evaluate with our training and testing and evaluation data set. However, then we do a review together with our business, and we see what kind of feedback they can give to us, if they are happy with our testing results, if they have other suggestions, if they want to have a different measurement for the quality. And with their check and feedback, then we go over to an improvement of our models. This is again our responsibility. we refine what we want to improve so that we can make small incremental steps, but go towards an improvement. However, these small steps make it that every sprint there's an outcome, and that every sprint, which is for us 2 weeks, business sees some improvement. It's always that they feel, wow, the team has worked towards our common goal. As Marc also introduced, the pyramid of refinement. We have different methods to refine. Our team can refine, for instance, or what we usually practice is by functionality. For instance, if we have different models for different clauses, we don't have one big story for all the classification, just classify if all the different clauses are in, but we refine that, for instance, for the analysis clause, we have a different model. We have a functionality for the EU access, and so that could be refinement steps. We can refine by data type, meaning extractions, for instance, for the extractions, where we have, sometimes we want to extract dates, sometimes we want to extract percentage values, sometimes we want to extract words as well. So in this context, it made sense for us to refine by data type and first deal, for instance, with all the dates, extract these, and then go on and post-process these. And last but not least, we can also refine by workflow. For instance, we have a highlighting functionality where in the UI, the user can review our prediction. And if he's clicking on the data field he wants to review, then the respective area in the document is highlighted. However, this highlighting can be completely independent on the model training. The highlighting can be independent on the extraction and so on. So we say this is a completely different workflow. This comes after, so it's independent of the other tasks, and that's how we refine it. Marc also introduced the Moscow method for prioritization. Basically, if we must have something, if we should have something, if we could have, or if we won't have this time. So must-haves are usually technical requirements for us. For instance, the data load. Without data load, we couldn't do anything. A should-have is basically business requirements for the different clauses. This is aligned. This is their objective, that they want to have predictions for all the different clauses and the extractions. But even there, within some of the clauses are more relevant than others. So this gives them a natural prioritization as well. Could have, for instance, is a highlighting for us, and this is a nice to have for the business. And won't have, for instance, is the signature and detection. So as an example here, as a good counter example, business was insisting that we extract the date of the signature because it's relevant when the contract was signed. Because it's relevant when the contract was signed. This was their argument why we should have it. So our team invested a long time into how can we detect the handwritten date. And we had long discussions how to do that. We had long discussions with business. Why do they need it? And they said, yes, they need it. It took several weeks until business found out, well, legally it's currently not relevant for us. But during that time, our team was already trying some technical solutions to extract the signature date. But this was a learning for us that we should ask many, many times more, why, what is the purpose, and how does it contribute value for you as a business? And with this understanding, then me as PO, I can much better prioritize, and our team would not have spent several weeks on the signature date extraction. In the overall mindset change here, I already mentioned it before. Machine learning is never 100% accurate. So we are very lucky that our business is understanding that. But this is also a mindset change. Whenever you have rules, you can rely on that. Machine learning, you cannot. So once business is understanding this boundary condition, we have to figure out together how we can deal with things that go wrong, how we can deal with clauses that are predicted incorrectly. In our test data, whenever we find wrong predictions, then we go back to the business and discuss with them what is the business knowledge, what kind of phrases, what kind of terms are usually used, what kind of keywords do you have, so we don't brute force just machine learning on top of it, but we try to also integrate the business and domain knowledge we are having to improve our performance on the test data. As I already mentioned before, we also try to handle the low confidence predictions. So if we do have a prediction which most likely is not correct, but we are not sure, then we are having this manual interface where the user can have a look at it, supported by the highlighting, and then still decide if the machine was correct and accept it, or correct the machine output. And both of this, the correction or the initial acceptance, will be stored, and we're going to use it for retraining, and therefore making the overall model smarter by this. One big issue, I think, is also the change from the waterfall environment to Agile. Because from the waterfall perspective, and high-ranking management still needs delivery deadlines and dates until something is delivered. So how can we handle this? Basically, currently we are promising to have models in place, but we cannot promise the model performance. And iteratively, we can enhance the model, but we can never promise that there will be a specific accuracy reached, because this is highly depending on the data. And as long as it is not done, you cannot know if this is achievable. Concluding, how we think we are getting a smart product is with 3 pillars: open communication with our business, product identification, so the business is working towards this, our whole team feels responsible to deliver a valuable outcome towards the product, and all of us are always willing to adapt, so we try to work collaboratively and not insist on this is how it has to be, but what is the most reasonable approach, what is the most valuable approach, how can we achieve that we gain some business value for our stakeholders, and with that we get a smart product from all the parties. And with this, we can open the round for discussion.
Yeah, sure. So if any questions, please ask, right? I think it's good to really share how the Agile development is, and to be very open here, we are still learning every day, right? So this is kind of experiment improving process. Okay, so if no more questions, pass back to Moshe to close the call. Thank you.
One slide was additional, right?